Patrice Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, was assassinated on January 17, 1961, after being overthrown in a coup backed by Belgium and the United States. Lumumba was a nationalist leader who sought full independence from colonial influence, which made him a threat to Western interests. Following Congo's independence in 1960, he faced resistance from Western-backed factions, especially in the mineral-rich Katanga region. Joseph Mobutu, with CIA and Belgian support, arrested him, and he was flown to Katanga, where he was executed by a firing squad led by Congolese officers under Belgian supervision. His assassination plunged Congo into decades of dictatorship under Mobutu Sese Seko, political instability, and neo-colonial exploitation, preventing the country from achieving true sovereignty and economic independence. Sylvanus Olympio. Sylvanus Olympio, the first president of Togo, was assassinated on January 13, 1963, during West Africa's first military coup. Olympio had sought to reduce French influence in Togo by creating an independent economy and refusing to integrate former French colonial soldiers into the Togolese army. This angered ex-colonial soldiers who, under the leadership of Sergeant Etienne Eyadema, later known as Gnassingbé Eyadema, stormed the presidential residence and shot Olympio dead outside the U.S. Embassy. The coup marked a shift in Togo's political trajectory, leading to military rule and the rise of Eyadema as a dictator in 1967. His rule lasted for 38 years, setting the stage for a long-lasting authoritarian regime that his son, Faure Gnassingbé, continues today. The assassination ended Togo's democratic ambitions and established military dominance in the country's politics. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Nigeria's first prime minister, was assassinated on January 15, 1966, during Nigeria's first military coup. His government was accused of corruption, ethnic favoritism, and failing to address regional tensions, particularly between the northern and southern regions. The coup, led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu and other young officers, targeted key political figures, including Balewa, who was abducted and later found dead on the outskirts of Lagos. His assassination intensified Nigeria's ethnic divisions, as the coup was perceived to favor the predominantly Igbo officers, leading to a counter-coup in July 1966, which brought General Yakubu Gowon to power. These events fueled tensions that eventually led to the Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970, claiming over 1 million lives and solidifying military dominance in Nigerian politics for decades. Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso, was assassinated on October 15, 1987, in a coup orchestrated by his former ally and close friend, Blaise Compaoré. Sankara, often referred to as Africa's Che Guevara, had implemented socialist policies, promoted self-reliance, and challenged foreign influence, which made him a target of Western powers and internal elites. Compaoré, backed by France and Côte d'Ivoire, led a military faction that stormed the presidential palace, executing Sankara and 12 of his aides in a hail of bullets. His assassination reversed many of his progressive policies, as Compaoré aligned Burkina Faso with Western interests, privatized resources, and ruled with an authoritarian grip until his own ousting in 2014. Sankara's death deprived Africa of a visionary leader, and his legacy continues to inspire movements advocating for social justice and anti-imperialism. Samuel Doe. Samuel Doe, the president of Liberia from 1980 to 1990, was assassinated on September 9, 1990, during the Liberian Civil War. Doe, who had seized power in a coup in 1980, ruled with an iron fist, suppressing opposition and favoring his own ethnic group, the Kron, which fueled ethnic tensions. His downfall began when Charles Taylor's National Patriotic Front of Liberia, NPFL, launched an armed rebellion against his government in 1989. However, it was a rival faction, Prince Johnson's Independent National Patriotic Front of Liberia, INPFL, that captured Doe at the headquarters of the West African Peacekeeping Force, ECOMOG. Johnson's men tortured Doe on camera, cutting off his ears and fingers before executing him. His death plunged Liberia deeper into chaos, escalating the Civil War, which lasted until 2003, killing over 250,000 people and devastating the country's economy and infrastructure. Juvenal Habyarimana. Juvenal Habyarimana, the president of Rwanda from 1973 to 1994, was assassinated on April 6, 1994, when his plane was shot down near Kigali. The attack also killed Burundi's president, Cyprien Ntaryamira, and remains one of the most controversial assassinations in African history. The plane was hit by surface-to-air missiles, with blame falling on either Hutu extremists within Habyarimana's government or the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, led by Paul Kagame. His assassination triggered the Rwandan genocide, where extremist Hutu militias, the Interahamwe, massacred over 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutu in just 100 days. The genocide led to the RPF taking power in Rwanda, reshaping the country's leadership and triggering conflicts that extended into the First and Second Congo Wars, 1996 to 2003, affecting the entire Great Lakes region. Melchior Ndadaye. Melchior Ndadaye, Burundi's first democratically elected president and a member of the Hutu ethnic group, was assassinated on October 21, 1993, in a coup led by Tutsi-dominated military officers. Ndadaye had won the presidency just months earlier in June 1993, marking a historic transition from military rule to democracy. However, his attempts to reform the military and integrate Hutus into the government threatened the long-standing dominance of the Tutsi elite. His assassination, along with the killing of several government officials, triggered a brutal civil war between Hutu and Tutsi factions, leading to over 300,000 deaths and lasting until 2005. His death also fueled regional instability, contributing to the broader ethnic conflicts that later influenced the Rwandan genocide, 1994, and wars in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, Libya's ruler for 42 years, 1969 to 2011, was assassinated on October 20, 2011, during the Libyan civil war. After months of NATO-backed uprisings against his regime, Gaddafi was captured by rebel forces in his hometown of Sirte while trying to flee. He was dragged through the streets, beaten, stabbed, and eventually shot in the head by rebels. His assassination ended his authoritarian rule, but plunged Libya into chaos, as rival militias and extremist groups, including ISIS, took advantage of the power vacuum. Libya has since struggled with instability, civil wars, and failed governments, with the country remaining divided between competing factions. The fall of Gaddafi also led to increased arms trafficking across North Africa, fueling insurgencies in the Sahel region, including Mali, Chad, and Nigeria. François Tombalbaye, Chad's first president, was assassinated on April 13, 1975, in a military coup led by Chadian soldiers. Tombalbaye had ruled with an authoritarian grip since Chad's independence from France in 1960, repressing opposition and fueling ethnic tensions by favoring his Sahara ethnic group over the northern Muslim population. His unpopular policies, including forced labor and taxation, led to widespread unrest and insurgencies, particularly from the FROLINAT rebel movement in the north. As his regime became increasingly repressive, even the military turned against him. Soldiers stormed the presidential palace in N'Djamena and executed him. His assassination led to General Félix Malum taking power, but it did little to stabilize Chad, which remained embroiled in civil war and later suffered under the brutal rule of Hissène Habré and Idriss Deby. Teferi Benti. Teferi Benti, the chairman of Ethiopia's ruling military junta, the Derg, was assassinated on February 3, 1977, during a power struggle within his own government. After Emperor Haile Selassie was overthrown in 1974, Teferi became the leader of the Derg, initially promoting socialist policies and reform. However, his calls for a more moderate approach to governance and reducing military oppression put him at odds with the hardline faction led by Mengistu Haile Mariam. As a result, Mengistu orchestrated a coup, during which Teferi and several of his loyalists were gunned down at a meeting in Addis Ababa. This marked the beginning of Mengistu's brutal dictatorship, which launched the Red Terror campaign, leading to the mass executions of political opponents and the deaths of hundreds of thousands. Ethiopia was plunged into deeper oppression and conflict, ultimately leading to civil war and Mengistu's eventual downfall in 1991. Ali Soilih. Ali Soilih, the president of Comoros from 1975 to 1978, was assassinated on May 29, 1978, following a French-backed coup led by mercenary Bob Denard and Ahmed Abdallah, the former president he had ousted. Soilih was a radical socialist who sought to modernize Comoros through secularism, youth militias, and breaking away from French influence. However, his policies alienated traditional leaders and the elite, while his youth militias became increasingly violent. France, which had interests in maintaining control over Comoros, supported a coup that overthrew Soilih. He was captured and executed by firing squad shortly after. His assassination restored French-aligned leadership, with Ahmed Abdallah returning to power, but it also set a precedent for repeated coups and political instability in Comoros, making the country one of the most coup-prone nations in the world. Anwar Sadat. Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt from 1970 to 1981, was assassinated on October 6, 1981, during a military parade in Cairo. His murder was carried out by Islamist militants within the Egyptian army, led by Lieutenant Khalid Islambouli, a member of the radical group Egyptian Islamic Jihad. Sadat had made enemies among Islamic extremists due to his signing of the Camp David Accords, 1978, which led to Egypt's peace treaty with Israel, 1979, the first by an Arab nation. This was seen as a betrayal of Arab and Palestinian causes. During the annual victory parade commemorating Egypt's Yom Kippur war victory, Islambouli and his men stormed the parade ground, opening fire on Sadat, killing him instantly along with several officials. His assassination led to a state of emergency in Egypt and the rise of Hosni Mubarak, who ruled for nearly 30 years under authoritarian policies. Egypt also intensified its crackdown on Islamist groups, leading to long-standing conflicts between the government and extremist organizations. Mohamed Boudiaf. Mohamed Boudiaf, Algeria's president for only 5 months, was assassinated on June 29, 1992, by one of his own bodyguards, Lieutenant Lambarek Boumarafi, during a public speech in Annaba. Boudiaf had returned from exile in 1992 to take control of a transitional government following the military's annulment of Algeria's 1991 elections, which had been won by the Islamic Salvation Front (FIS). His goal was to restore stability, fight corruption, and prevent an Islamist takeover. However, his crackdown on Islamist extremists and corruption within the military angered both Islamists and elements of the Algerian deep state. Boumarafi, who was linked to Islamist groups, shot Boudiaf in front of a live audience. His assassination deepened Algeria's political crisis, fueling the Algerian Civil War, 1991 to 2002, between the government and radical Islamist insurgents, resulting in over 200,000 deaths and years of violent conflict. Cyprian Ntaryamira. Ntaryamira, the president of Burundi, was assassinated on April 6, 1994, when his plane was shot down near Kigali, Rwanda, killing him and Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana. The aircraft was struck by surface-to-air missiles as it was preparing to land, sparking immediate chaos. The attack is widely believed to have been carried out by either Hutu extremists from within Habyarimana's own government, who opposed peace talks, or the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, led by Paul Kagame, though the exact perpetrators remain unknown. Ntaryamira had been in office for only 2 months, and his assassination fueled an explosion of violence in both Burundi and Rwanda. In Burundi, the death of the moderate Hutu leader further exacerbated ethnic tensions between Hutus and Tutsis, contributing to ongoing civil unrest and war. Meanwhile, in Rwanda, his assassination triggered the Rwandan genocide, where over 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutus were massacred in just 100 days, marking one of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. Laurent Désiré Kabila, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, from 1997 to 2001, was assassinated on January 16, 2001, by one of his own bodyguards inside his palace in Kinshasa. Kabila had come to power after toppling Mobutu Sese Seko in 1997, but his leadership soon faced widespread opposition from internal factions, rebel groups, and foreign powers, particularly Rwanda and Uganda, which had initially supported him but later turned against him. His assassin, Rashidi Kasareka, was allegedly part of a larger conspiracy involving elements within Kabila's own military and foreign backers. Kabila's death led to his son, Joseph Kabila, taking over as president, continuing his father's rule but with efforts to bring peace. However, his assassination prolonged the Second Congo War, 1998 to 2003, the deadliest conflict since World War II, with over 5 million deaths. The DRC remained unstable, with continued violence, foreign interference, and struggles over the country's vast natural resources. Idriss Deby. Chad's president for over 30 years, 1990 to 2021, was assassinated on April 20, 2021, while visiting the front line during a battle against rebel forces. Deby had ruled Chad with an authoritarian grip, maintaining power through military strength and support from France, which viewed him as a key ally in fighting Islamist terrorism in the Sahel region. However, during the 2021 Chadian presidential elections, a rebel group called Front for Change and Concord in Chad launched an offensive from Libya, threatening the capital, N'Djamena. Instead of remaining in the capital, Deby personally went to the battlefield, where he was fatally wounded in combat under unclear circumstances. His death created a power vacuum, and within hours the military installed his son, Mahamat Idris Deby, as the new leader, effectively continuing the family's rule. The transition sparked protests, political instability, and further military crackdowns, leaving Chad in ongoing uncertainty and unrest. I know you were expecting more video like this, so hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world, and it helps me bringing you more content.